So we got a lot to get into, and of course you heard the intro there. Mike Vrabel talking today at the Combine. We'll have Combine coverage all week long. Alex Barth will be calling in from Indianapolis. We'll tell you whatever notes that we do here or things that we do here. But what we got today was Mike Vrabel seemed to be loose and certainly seemed to be the guy that is in control for the New England Patriots, and that's where we start tonight with our opening take, brought to you by ESPN Bet Sportsbook. Opening take brought to you by ESPN Bet Sportsbook. And when you go back to Patriots owner Robert Kraft, when he was asked about the next head coach and the power for the next head coach when it came to personnel, his quote was, he's going to have big input on who the players are and who the coaches are. It'll be his decision. That came from the owner at the introductory press conference for Mike Vrabel. And it certainly sounds like Mike Vrabel's in charge heading into the Combine this week. When he was introduced, he mentioned Elliott Wolf's name several times. But today, I think he made it clear he wanted his coaches and himself to have input in the scouting process instead of just leaving it to Elliott Wolf and his staff. Quote, I want them to be included in those conversations. The one thing I've learned as a head coach is there's always going to be players that head coaches covet. And there's going to be players that scouts covet for certain reasons. They'll call them traits. They'll call that other stuff. And coaches want players that they can trust. When it comes across to those players, he always chuckles because he was a position coach. He likes certain guys. He knows the scouts are going to like a certain guy. They're going to sit there and argue. He's going to see what they come up with. He appreciates it. But I like that fact. And maybe that's a little bit of collaboration that some people have spoken about happening before. Clearly, we don't know who was in charge a year ago. But there's no doubt about it. Mike Vrabel's in charge. And this is what he said when it came to free agency. And what lies ahead when it comes to some of the talent that's in the open market. He said it's free agency. Everybody overspends sometimes in free agency. That's a lot better than your head coach saying we're going to burn some cash, right? And it's free agency. Everybody overspends sometimes in free agency. I liked it. I think Vrabel's saying the right things. I think it's about time that Vrabel started taking some, and I shouldn't say accountability, but control and be loose. I think about that first introductory press conference where he wanted to talk about Elliott and having this guy and that guy. Like it sounded like Elliott was his guy. Elliott Wolf was what I mean. But he did disclose that the coaching staff has already evaluated free agents. And they have reports on available players. So the coaching staff is absolutely involved in the scouting process, something that is much different than maybe a year ago. And quite frankly, Bill Belichick, when he was here, at the end, we know his decisions weren't great. He wasn't leaning on his scouts. He was kind of ignoring them and taking his own guys. So I love that they have reports collaborative on that end. Wolf's going to do his dirty work, but at the end, it's going to be Mike Vrabel who makes the decisions. Here's another one that we always talk about here. Was McDaniels a Kraft hire or was it a Vrabel hire? And when Vrabel was asked about McDaniels today, he noted that when he consulted in Cleveland last year, the two had numerous conversations and they interviewed multiple candidates. Sham. But Vrabel, this was one of his choices or his top choices, and he's had conversations with them all along. So, fine. I'll die on the hill. I don't care who is in charge. I am curious about McDaniels and his offense. But today, you saw a much looser Mike Vrabel. You saw a guy that sounded like he was in control and expressed the importance of coaches and really what their role is. And he needs to be the guy that makes the decision on these picks. He needs to be the guy that looks at these reports on who they should sign and who they should spend money on. That's at least clear to me at this point. That's something I've always wondered about. He's got his guys in here now. Stryker, he's got Cowden in here. And both head coaches, whether it was Mayo and whether it was Vrabel, they both talked about working with Elliott Wolf. It's what they spoke with. Today, I didn't hear Elliott Wolf's name once from Mike Vrabel. Not once today. Sounds like the coaches are certainly involved, and Mike Vrabel is the guy making the decisions. Your leadoff take, again, brought to you by ESPN Bet Sportsbook. ESPN Bet Sportsbook. We're here until 6:30 tonight. We got 2 games. You got Celtics in Toronto tonight. We'll tell you who's out. Also, the Bruins in action tonight. They take on the Toronto Maple Leafs. I want to get into more on the Combine and just what are some of the important things that Vrabel talked about today when it comes to being at the Combine. We'll have coverage after the game tonight. As we're here until 11 o'clock, we'll be joined by Alex Barth, who's in Indianapolis. I believe he was at the Pacers game last night, too, so who knows? Maybe we'll get a scouting report on that one as well. We'll take a quick break. We'll get more into what else Mike Vrabel said today at the Combine. I'm Joe Murray here on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
You're listening to Joe Murray on 98.5.
night in the sports world. Obviously, locally here, you got both the Celtics and Bruins in action tonight. Nationally, you get the Luka Doncic facing his former team tonight when the Mavericks come to L.A. So that's somewhat of a big story. It was one of the biggest storylines just a couple of weeks ago. So that's a big one later on tonight as well. And, well, there's tons of Combine stuff happening. And, well, that's what Mike Vrabel is at the Combine. I mentioned just a little while ago, today I thought he was loose. He sounded like the head coach of the New England Patriots. I mean, it's different when you think back to Gerard Mayo just a year ago. He'd fly off the handle and say, oh, yeah, burning cash. Where it was pretty adamant that where he stands on free agency is he's grading players. His coaches have reports. They've done evaluations. Like, they're going to look at trades. They're going to look at who's available. They're going to be invested. And he mentioned it when it comes to free agency. Everybody overspends. So, sounds like they're going to spend some money. But the Combine is important for a few reasons. And, you know, talking with other athletes that have been through a Combine and have been drafted, you know, one of the big things that they always have told me was the small interactions that they had with coaches or defensive coordinators or offensive coordinators for that matter. So right now, you know, teams have a chance behind the scenes to talk to 60 prospects. They can do about 15-minute periods. And, you know, right now it's all minimal stuff. They're not able to really break down and ask big questions. But that's what you're doing right now. And when Mike Vrabel was asked today, you know, what is it that he likes about the Combine, he mentions the interviews. He said that the drills are the same. They haven't changed in 30 years. He wants to get to know some of these guys briefly and just see how they interact. Like, they want to see authentic selves, not people trying to put on, you know, questions that are being asked. He wants to meet them. He wants to shake their hand. He wants to get a feel for these people, for these players. But he mentioned that when it comes to a lot of these interviews, there are other significant parts this weekend, and it's just all the people that are together at the Combine, right? Guys are going out to dinners, restaurants, and, hey, what's your thoughts on this guy? And, hey, we might be looking to move this, you know, would there be something there? There's a lot going on, and I think the Patriots should be talking to everybody. If someone's talking up the number 4 overall pick, which we'll get to in a minute here, they should be open to it. Vrabel never closed the door on potentially moving in the draft board. His quote today, I don't think anybody could say for certain what they're going to do right now. People always ask, who are you guys going to take? Tell us who goes 1, 2, or 3. He'll have a better idea of that. He doesn't have one right now. I'm sure they're building their board. But they are listening. They're open. They'd entertain any offer that somebody had that they felt could strengthen the football team. So right now, he doesn't have a great idea, but, you know, they're open. But who has final say on the roster decisions? No doubt about it, Mike Vrabel. I wouldn't have to want it to be, he wouldn't have taken the head coaching job, he said, if he didn't feel comfortable in the impact that he could make to the roster. Mentions how much he wants to continue to have great conversations with personnel staff and still talk to Stretch, his guy. Didn't see Wolf in there. We're all just trying to find ways to bring the right players in, Vrabel said. We need to strengthen the roster. We understand that we have some really good conversations about how you get there. So Mike Vrabel is trying to build, whether it's coaching, all hands are on deck. They have money to spend. They're not afraid to make mistakes. I like what I saw today from Vrabel. I'm going to tell you right now, I wasn't high on the Mike Vrabel hire. I've been pretty consistent on that. But I am a guy who knows that he has gone into situations and has rebuilt rosters. And, you know, he had a really good quote today when someone asked him about, you know, how do you improve the roster? And I do want to get into the roster in a second here. But he talked about Ramondre Stevenson and some of the fumble issues that he had. And he mentioned that, yeah, it's important to him to hold on to the football, but at the same time, other guys on the team weren't protecting the football. So, I like that because Stevenson's a good player. I mean, you don't want to lose this guy over potentially fumbles or, you got a guy that just signed a new deal who can run well. But at the same time, you're backing him that he wasn't protected. And maybe the reason why he lost the ball was everybody wasn't doing their job. The coaching impact that's already happened to the Patriots, even before the combine has started, is huge. It's leaps and bounds what they were a year ago. It's Vrabel's guys that he knows. I think everybody knows what they want to do and what they're looking for, and that's to improve the roster. After many games last year, I'd sit here doing postgame and tell you that one team was just flat out better than the other. Now, do I think that there were games a year ago that they could have won with the roster that they had? Absolutely. Do I think coaching had everything to do with them losing? Yes. But right now, they know who their quarterback is. I think they have an idea of the offense that they want to run. I think they know what they have on their roster and where they need to improve. I think defense is probably one of the best spots to start, which is why when it comes to the number 4 overall pick, they should be open to it. Just like Vrabel said today. They should be open to that. And I know that Mel Kiper's got his drafts coming out, and Will Campbell seems to be the big name. Well, Vrabel specifically said today, sometimes when it comes to the draft, teams get in trouble for drafting for need. So what's that tell you? Is that a smokescreen about Will Campbell? Is that they might just take the best player available? There was a lot of meat on the bone today when it came to Vrabel. But he's open. The Patriots are open for business. The Patriots have an idea of the players that they want to bring in and the system that they want to run. It's the first time in a long time. And again, they haven't played a game yet. But the coaching staff, which I still question at times, can their egos work together here? I think there's a lot of smart minds when it comes to the offensive line and Doug Marrone, when it comes to the offensive coordinator and Josh McDaniels. Hell, they're going to let Williams run the defense. They're going to Vrabel said that he's not going to be making those calls. Now, I'm sure he'll step in because he's in charge. That's my biggest takeaway from today. This man's in charge. And I didn't hear much about Elliott Wolf whatsoever. All right, enough of the combine stuff. We'll talk to Alex Barth after the game tonight, who's there, see if we have anything else. But I'm sure the Patriots, everyone's going to want to talk to Mike Vrabel. Patriots got some money to spend. They got high draft capital and a lot of holes to add to their roster. This is going to be a great little between last year and the different quarterbacks and this year with all the upgrades that, a couple of tweaks here, signings there. Can they go from 4 to 6 wins? Absolutely. Can they shoot for a bigger jump like what Washington did? It's certainly on the table for that team. This should be an exciting time. For the first time in a while, it sounds like the guy that's in charge knows what he's looking for, knows that ownership has to spend, and someone is in control and making the final decisions, something that hasn't happened here in a while. Just transitioning quickly, tonight you will get, right here on the Sports Hub, Leafs and Bruins. Mentioned the Bruins lost the other night to Anaheim. It was a tough one in overtime, and the things that Don Sweeney said in postgame made it look like some things could be ahead as far as changes or maybe even trades for that matter. So it looks like Justin Brazeau not on the ice for tonight. He could be a sell-high candidate who's an unrestricted free agent. Could that be one of the first dominoes to fall? The NHL trade deadline is on March 7th. If you've noticed some trends around the deadline over the last couple of years, some teams really try to be the first to attack. Once the first moves happen, then the trickle-down effect happens. But I think the Bruins have some assets that they can move on from, and when I call them assets, I think they can restock a bit. I think they can do Trent Frederick. There might be a team out there that needs a third-line center that's tough. And Trent Frederick might be one of the better ones available right now. Doesn't look like there's an extension there. Team needs a third-line center. I think Sweeney's got to get the biggest haul he can